You ever walk into a bookstore and just feel completely overwhelmed by the self-help section? There are thousands of books, all promising the secret to a better life. But what if I told you that beneath them all, there are just a few core principles that connect everything? That's what we're doing today. We're finding that master key, creating a unified guide to really mastering your own life.
So let's just start with a huge question right off the bat. Are you really in control of your life? I mean, really? Well, a lot of the smartest thinkers out there would say, not really. At least, not at first. The idea is that we're all running on these hidden scripts, these subconscious programs that are calling the shots before we even get a chance to think. And that leads us to the big idea for this whole explainer. Think of your mind like a computer. It has an operating system. And from the day you were born, it's been loaded with software, beliefs, habits, emotional reactions that you never chose. This OS is running in the background 24/7, shaping everything you see, think, and do. So, if we want to take control, we have to start by understanding the code, right? Our journey begins right here by decoding this unseen operating system. We're going to look at that inner world of automatic thoughts and beliefs that has been running the show for way too long. Now, here's the thing. According to Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman, this mental software, it's got bugs. He calls them cognitive biases. Basically, they're predictable glitches in our thinking. Our brain takes shortcuts to make sense of a complicated world, but in doing so, it often makes us jump to some very wrong conclusions. In this slide breaks down why those bugs are so powerful. We have two mental gears. System 1 is our autopilot. It's fast, it's emotional, it's intuitive. It's how you know 2 plus 2 equals 4 without thinking. Then there's System 2. That's your conscious, analytical mind. It's slow, it takes a ton of effort. It's what you have to fire up to solve, 17 times 24. The kicker? We spend almost our entire lives running on System 1, which is exactly where all those biases and glitches live. So here's the key. You can't fix a program while it's just running on autopilot in the background. The very first step, the absolute foundation of taking back control, is learning to just watch your own mind, to observe it without judging it. This is all about becoming the watcher. And when you start watching, you'll notice some really fundamental beliefs. Researcher Carol Dweck identified two big ones. First, be fixed mindset, which believes your talent and intelligence are just set in stone. Challenges are scary because you might fail and look bad. But the growth mindset believes your abilities can be developed through effort. Challenges aren't threats, they are literally opportunities to get better. So the question is, which one of these is running your code right now? This quote from Eckhart Tolle might sound a little strange, but it is so profound. Think about it. You don't have to wrestle your thoughts to the ground. You don't have to beat yourself up for getting distracted. The simple, quiet act of noticing, oh wow, my mind was a million miles away, that is the moment of awareness. That is the moment of power. That's the first step to freedom. And this is where it all starts to click. That power of observation, it leads directly to what's next. Because once you can see your thoughts without being swept away by them, a little bit of space opens up. And in that space, for the first time, you get to choose. You get to set your own direction with real intention. This idea comes from Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. What he discovered, even in the most unimaginable circumstances, was that there is one freedom no one can ever take from you, the freedom to choose your response. See, our real power isn't in controlling events, but in choosing how we decide to face them. But, okay, choosing your way can feel a little vague, right? So how do you make it concrete? Well, Stephen Covey gave us this incredibly practical framework. You start by just identifying the most important roles in your life: parent, artist, leader, friend, whatever they are. Then, for each one, you define what winning looks like in the long run. Suddenly, that big, fuzzy sense of purpose gets a skeleton. It becomes a real, actionable mission. Now, to find your very next step, there's this amazing tool called the focusing question from the book The One Thing. It's so simple, but so powerful. It just cuts through all the clutter of your to-do list and forces you to find the first domino. What's the one action you can take right now that will make everything else fall into place? All right, so we have our awareness, we know our direction, but, having a map to a destination is one thing. You still need an engine to actually get you there. This is where we build that engine. This is how we turn all that good intention into real-world action. In his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear basically gives us the blueprint for every single habit we have.
It's always this four-step loop. There's a cue in your environment, which triggers a craving, which makes you perform a response, the habit itself, which then delivers a reward. If you want to build a new habit or break an old one, you don't need some heroic amount of willpower. You just have to be clever and engineer one part of this loop.
Okay, so how long does this actually take? You've probably heard the myth that it takes 21 days to form a habit, right? Well, research shows that's not quite right. On average, it takes about 66 days for a new behavior to become truly automatic. And that tells us something really important. It's not about being intense for a week, it's about being consistent. You just have to keep showing up, even imperfectly, until that new action becomes part of your default setting.
And this all leads to the ultimate goal, which is spelled out so well in the book Essentialism. The point isn't to just try harder and use more willpower. The goal is to build such smart routines that doing the most important stuff becomes the easiest thing to do. You're not fighting friction anymore. You're just flowing with a system that you designed on purpose.
Okay, so once we get our inner world more aligned, we can start to engage with the outside world in a much more effective way. And this is especially true when it comes to tricky conversations or negotiations, where understanding people is everything. This is a classic, game-changing idea from the book Getting to Yes. So often, we argue about positions, the thing people say they want, but that just leads to a stalemate. The real magic happens when you get curious about the interests underneath, the why behind what they want. When you understand the deeper needs on both sides, you can find solutions that work for everyone, instead of just splitting everything down the middle. A former FBI hostage negotiator, Chris Voss, takes this idea a step further. He says your goal in a tough conversation isn't to get the other person to say yes. Anyone can say yes to get you to go away. Your goal is to understand their perspective so well and summarize it back to them so accurately that they have this little light bulb moment and say, "That's right." That phrase, that means they feel truly understood. And that is where real connection and influence begins. But, and this is so important to remember, this whole path to mastery isn't about becoming some kind of perfect, flawless robot. Life is messy. We're messy. So the final crucial piece of this puzzle is learning to embrace the journey itself, with all of its growth, its resilience, and yeah, even its imperfections. There's this beautiful Japanese concept called wabi-sabi. It's the art of finding beauty not in perfect, symmetrical, shiny things, but in things that are a little flawed, a little worn. And in terms of our own operating system, it means we have to accept that we're never going to be perfectly debugged. It's about appreciating the beauty of our own incomplete, imperfect, and totally authentic journey. And this idea is actually backed by some amazing science from health psychologist Kelly McGonigal. What she found is that stress itself isn't necessarily the bad guy. Our belief about stress is what matters. When you start to see a stressful situation not as a threat, but as a challenge that your body is rising to meet, you actually change its physical effect on you. You turn it from poison into a source of energy and resilience. And that brings us to our very last question, inspired by the writer Brianna Wiest. What if those huge challenges in your life, the things you struggle with over and over, what if they aren't obstacles to your life? What if that mountain you're facing is in fact the path itself, the very challenge that was designed to forge you into the person you're meant to become? So, the question is, what mountain is yours?